Where is no? There it is. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Stage, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to do The Man from Laramie, starring James Stewart, Arthur Kennedy. This movie's directed by Anthony Mann. Uh, this movie has a lot of desert scenery. I really enjoy, though, James Stewart coming in as a captain of the army, which is this is sort of done in a very investigative like way for a western. What did you think, Butch?
One of my notes is Western detective thriller.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of a noir western in a weird way.
Most, yeah.
It and that's the thing too. Here's the one thing too. Not to play spoiler alert, but this movie,
But
yeah, but this movie is old. Um, so this movie here. Now, to be fair, yes, he's an army captain, James Stewart's character. Yeah, I forgot to grab my DVD, but because I'm forgetting.
the two were.
You got two there. See, I like that.
It's got the Desperados with Burt Lancaster with it.
See, mine just has just the one movie. But when I had bought The Man from Laramie, it was in a whole like set of westerns, like Western classics. So in it was that, The Professionals, and something else. I think The Far Country. And so I bought all three movies together. They were each individually priced though, so which was nice. Very very cheap. But with this, James Stewart plays an army captain who is leading a delivery to a town, and he stops in the middle of the desert. And I love this. And he comes. They're like, "Oh, we could just camp further down." And he's like, "Nah, here's good." And you get the reason why. He goes up and sees like where these army soldiers' stuff was burned, and they were obviously massacred. And his little brother was obviously a part of the Union soldiers that were massacred by Indians of all things. They were sold rifles. He believes they were sold rifles, and he's right. So, spoiler alert with this movie: there's going to be Arthur Kennedy. This is not his first Western. James Stewart, by the way.
No.
He's actually in Bend of the River with James Stewart. I believe he's in a movie called Cheyenne Autumn as well.
Don't recognize it. He could be.
What did you think of Arthur Kennedy's Vic?
He plays a good villain,
Yes,
but also, we've discussed this before, and more academic folk than us has said, the villain's always a better role. He has a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's kind of reminds me of like one of those puzzles. You have to keep going in, and you find out more and more layers, and because right away you think, well, he's just a hard ass that works for Wagaman, and then you just keep finding out more and more and more. So as we get to it, as our discussion, he's not the smartest bad guy in the world either.
No, he's not. It's funny because I think the reason he gets tripped up is because he's reduced to playing babysitter with his boss's son, who's got a very very hot temper, and you find out that he was spoiled as a kid, and it's like that's not hard to see. Uh, that's the thing with some of these characters in the Anthony Mann's westerns. With anytime I see Arthur in a western, James Stewart, he's usually he's always has these underlings that feels like he's playing babysitter too. And it's like you'd swear Arthur Kennedy would just rather shoot him. And I swear to God, if I know there I can't ask Arthur Kennedy if he'd rather shoot him, but I wish I could.
Oh yeah. He is the son is Dave. He is such a punk.
Did you think that? No, because he's very hot tempered. Did you think that Dave was the one who knifed the guy in town?
No, I always figured it was not crap. Guy we were just talking about. Damn.
Vic.
Vic. Thank you. My brain's going. I always figured it was Vic, but that's actually it's one of my points here on the. What is the point of that character? What is this? Is it Chris Bolts? Bolt?
Yeah.
He comes, follows Stewart out. He's like, hey, I've been known to sell information. He's like, well, I'm not buying. Get out of here. Well, then he goes back to town, and he's like standing on the roof, and he very pathetically tries to stab Jimmy Stewart when he jumps off. They fight. He runs off. And like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, we find out he's been stabbed. It's like, what the hell was the point of this?
You know what this was? And I love Anthony Mann Westerns. But Jack Elam was not a star at this point. He was desperate for a paycheck, probably.
In that case, okay, but to me, it added nothing to the film.
No, you're right. It doesn't. That's why. You're absolutely right. His character is absolutely. He's kill bait. This is basically what I classify in horror films as kill bait. Bolt is basically he's kill bait for your killer. So here he is. I got information I can sell. And here's the when you see a James Stewart Western character, you either give them information or they tell you to beat. He tells you to beat it, and guess what? He's going to tell you to beat it. And so when Bolt tries to corner him in an alley and then runs away because Stewart gets the better of it. It's like, I'm thinking, wow, this dude, Jack Elam, you could tell he wasn't a star at this point for Westerns. He would be later on. He would be known for, at first, good guy roles, then bad guy roles. But here, he's not a star yet. He needs the money. So he gets himself in this Western, which his character is a bit interesting, but again, his character is also so annoying, you really don't care when he dies.
I want to hit one of my favorite lines in the whole film. I feel like they were getting something past the censors when James Stewart first comes into town and he goes into the mercantile to tell them he's brought their supplies. A young lady, she's the person running it. She goes, "Would you like some tea?" Anyway, they're having exchanging pleasantries, and then she goes, "Do you take sugar?" And he goes, "When I can get it." I really hadn't caught that until watching it. I'm like, wait a minute now. I think we just slipped something past the censors.
James Stewart slipping the jab past the censors. Here's the thing too. When my wife asked me, "Do you want sugar?" I was like, "Yes, I would like sugar." So
we down here where we live, we see a lot of wild deer, and usually one of us sees it, we go, "Deer." So yeah, similar. Is this town Coronado? Is this like one of the rudest Western towns of all time? I mean, everybody's like, "Well, now that you're here, when you gonna leave?" I mean, everybody just like pushing him out the door, and it's like, I mean, I get it. It's don't want to talk about come into contact of talking about something of recent vintage, but he comes into a small town, and everybody is literally trying to push him out, which just makes him more suspicious.
I feel like this is Victoria Winters coming to Collinsport all over again. Go home. It's like, shut up and quit telling this girl to go home. It's like, you people are so rude. And that's the thing. That's this town too, Coronado. James Stewart's here. Leave. They just want him to leave. It reminds me actually of another fictional town in the video game, very well, Van Horn, where nobody really wants you there. They just want to shoot at you if you start any sort of trouble.
You think of whatever the town name is around Camp Crystal Lake. I don't think it has a name, but at least they know you're going to die, so they're trying to tell you to leave for your own good. It's not just rude, where these people are like, "Get out."
Especially Crazy Ralph. He's really trying to warn you too. Yeah, Yeah, they're
You
more.
know,
If I had to pick a town to go to just to visit, I'd rather pick Crystal Lake than this town in this movie because everybody in this town, you know how like in there's moments in Jaws where you're rooting for the shark. I swear I want the shark from Jaws to come up out of the sand or the like the earthworms from freaking Tremors to come up out of the sand and eat these people. They're jerks, Butch.
they are. I mean, it's. I know it's a kind of a Western staple, but you know, it just at one point it's like, okay, that's enough. One of my favorite scenes is after James Stewart delivers the wagons. He asks the lady, and she's like, "Well, there's a salt flat. Was it free to use? Yeah, it always has been. Okay, he's going to fill up his wagons and head back. Makes sense. Think of you're driving a truck, you deliver something, you want to pick something to take back. Well, they run into the psycho Dave, and because he's a psycho, he ends up burning the wagons and shooting all the mules, and just about is about to kill James Stewart and company until Vic shows up. And Vic kind of said, well, he stops Dave from killing him. I won't say he helps, but he stops Dave from killing him. Anyway, next day, James Stewart's back in town. He sees Dave. Yeah. And I just love that scene where he's like, he like walks out of the hotel or whatever you want to call it, and he sees him, and it's Jason Voorhees, the Terminator, and Darth Vader just walking, trying to line up with my camera. And I mean, it's not some great, it's just very serious, very like, I always want to go, somebody's going to get an ass whipping.
What they needed to do was put James Stewart in a pair of black wrestling trunks, cue the Stone Cold Steve Austin music, because that's what this was. This was like a wrestler walking down to the ring to open up a can of whoop ass. And that's what James,
I'm talking in the ring. It's the one that's like, you done gone too far.
That's it too. He's James Stewart. I love his face because he is so pissed off, and he has every right to be.
Yeah.
He gets his wagons burned, his mules get shot by Dave. It's like, son, retribution is coming your way. And when James Stewart sees him, it's like he gets into a fist fight with him. It's so good. It's so good. I love too how he wrestles with Vic's like, I told you not to start in trouble, when he punches Vic and they get into like a wrestling match.
Yeah. There's like 2 or 3 punches, and then the rest of the time I always call it they're hugging each other in the dirt. It's like, I will say I feel like that was really the only bad thing I have to say about this film is the fight choreography is pitiful. Yeah. But this story isn't about fighting, so yeah. I remember from high school we're very similar to that, because I remember one time these 2 guys at high school were fighting. And they were down on the ground. They were, hugging each other and whatnot. And I kind of leaned over and said, y'all going to fight? You going to hug each other? They both stop and look at me and start to get up. And I'm like, oh, God, I've done it again. Thankfully, the teacher came out and took them to the office. But so I guess that's an accurate fight, Usually I was too busy getting my butt kicked and I was down on the ground, trying to, not in the face, not in the face.
Yeah, the fight choreography isn't the best in this movie, but the gunplay is pretty fun. Actually, in this movie, James Stewart gets his hand shot at, a hole through his hand. So does Dave, but Dave does it more of a dirty way because he has his men hold James Stewart's character's arm out. And here's the thing: it's not an Anthony Mann James Stewart Western without James Stewart getting messed up. So, right on cue, James Stewart gets his hand shot. So.
I want you, after we're through doing this and you're through uploading, you got a minute, 5 minutes, put your disc back in and go to that scene where they're holding his hand out and look at how like they're holding it and then he comes in with the gun. If he really shot that gun, it would go through Jimmy Stewart's hand and right into his friend's gut and kill him probably. It's like, I noticed that and I was just like, no, I don't want to hold his hand.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I noticed that when I was watching it back this week, that his friend is standing right the hell behind his hand. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to end really, really badly. And folks, if you believe in movie magic, you definitely will after this movie.
But I will say that the two guys, I don't even think it's the ones that were holding him. After that scene, they're kind of disgusted, and like they go get James Stewart's horse and help him get on it. I mean, you kind of get the impression of like, okay, it's one thing to I know, go beat up the town drunk, but this is getting a little much.
Yeah, the town. Here's the thing too. Look, there are sheriffs that are mean, but God, this sheriff in this town's an asshole too. It's like, are you sure you're not trying to, impersonate, a tougher John Wayne here? Like, who are you trying to be here?
James Stewart actually says to him, do you work for Wagaman? Oh, no, I take orders. No, I think he worked for Wagaman. Or at the very least, he was like, Mr. Wagaman, is there something I could do for you?
It's like when you're referring to someone as Mr. Wagaman and you're trying to say they're not your boss, that's a hard sell, son. Yeah. It really is.
The actor who played the father, Alec Wagaman, he's got a great voice.
Yes.
Me and Jim were watching something else, and he was in it. I was like, wait a minute, where do I know that voice from? And that's actually, I think, what inspired me to recommend the movie. But also his character, here's another asshole, another rich guy that owns 60,000 billion acres, and how dare anybody else have another farm? I mean, he must be cousins to the Irish guy from Open Range.
I like there's a lot of subplots in this movie too. There's not just one. The lady who owns the Half Moon was actually engaged to the guy who owns the bar, which is really interesting subplot. You also have the subplot of not only was Vic the one who ordered the rifles, but Dave helped him sell them to the Indians. So you have not one heel in this movie, you have two. Unfortunately, because Dave is very childish and hot-tempered, and he's mad that his hand got shot at. He decides to turn on Vic, and he's like, I've had enough, and he's also tired of Vic ordering him around and being treated less than, because he's the guy who's the Barb's son. But Vic is like a son to the Barb, the owner of the Barb, which is interesting. It's like you like that dynamic, and I like that dynamic of this movie because it gets a sense of who's going to betray who first. But I sort of wish they would have. Though my one complaint about this movie, other than the fight choreography, I'm with you on that, is I get that he's supposed to be a brat and hot-tempered guy, and that's sort of what helps move the movie along too. But I sort of wish it would have been all an act to fool Vic, where he truly stabs Vic in the back, because I feel he's more of a heel than Vic himself.
Yeah, spoiled rich kid that is, endangering the whole town. Yep. I always got the feeling that Vic was always going to kill Dave. His plan from day one, I'll use him, and it's one of those, if you will, the Emperor from Star Wars. It's okay, I'll use him and he'll be useful, and he'll either join me or I'll kill him.
Yeah.
And that goes into what I was talking about earlier, where Vic is just not the smartest bad guy, because they get into it. He ends up shooting Dave, and he brings him home. here's the perfect opportunity. Alec, and a few scenes later asking, was it Dave that was giving the guns? All he had to do was say, yeah, Alec, it was. I didn't want to tell you. I found out. I was going to tell you. I didn't know how to tell you that your son, blah, blah, blah. You know how much I care for you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He's in the freaking clear.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got a little light in my glasses there. And he's just so damn stupid. He's like, no, don't go up there. Don't get over there. And another subplot is the older Wagaman, Alec, is going blind.
Yeah.
Which ties into where we're at and where we're discussing.
I think that's why Arthur Kennedy's character, Vic, pulls back a lot, because he feels bad for Alec going blind, but he also feels bad that Alec has a brat kid of a son that can't appreciate his old man. And Vic kind of can, but Vic's not a son to him. And Alec sort of reminds him that. He goes, that $600 is coming out of your pay. And he's like, what? Why? Because you're supposed to keep him out of trouble. And you're right. Vic should have went all the way with, yeah, I found out that Dave was the one who ordered the guns, sold the guns, but I didn't have the heart to tell you. How could I tell you your son was selling guns to Indians? And then when, James Stewart character showed up and they started fighting, it drove him nuts. And which really, part of that isn't a lie. It did drive him nuts, but, and that's what caused, because if you say, hey, I had to kill your son because he was selling guns to Indians, what's he gonna say? No, that's not true. It sort of is true. Now you don't have to mention that you were helping him.
Yeah. I think Alec, the older, the father, was playing them against each other.
Yeah.
I think that was bullshit to tell Vic that the money was coming out of his, because Vic, you've got this huge. He says how big it is. You ride for 3 days. It's all my territory. So Vic is the foreman on the ranch.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has plenty more things to do than to wipe your punk son's nose and change his diaper. Here's an idea. Take it out of your punk son's ass.
If this were any other villain, if this was sort of like a Lee Marvin villain, he would have plugged him years ago.
One of the websites I it's been forever since I've seen King Lear, but they compared this to King Lear.
Really? I think the thing of this is that with this movie, when you have two villains and you're deciding which one is the worst, I get why Arthur Kennedy pulls back, but I don't feel he should have.
Yeah.
I feel there should have been a line where now they do a good job with he pushes him off the horse, but it more looks like an accident than anything, even though it's not. That I sort of wish he'd have told him, jump off, he'd have pulled his gun and made him get off his horse, or shot his gun in the air and made the horse throw him, which would have been more sinister than just no. I think they needed Arthur Kennedy to go all in as Vic as a heel.
I told Jill during that scene, I said, typical rich man. What are you doing? Don't do that. Blah, 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 blah. He's so used to giving orders. It's like, you want to look at him and go, want him to look at him and go, you're not in charge anymore. Bam.
They needed Frank from Once Upon a Time in the West. I could squash you like a wormy apple.
And Alec tells Vic, one minute you're like a son to me, and how much he appreciates it, and then the next minute I can fire you, and it's like, okay, I think you've got some damage yourself there, buddy. Yeah. And that's going back to what I was saying about Alec playing Vic and Dave against each other. whether he meant to or not, but it sure came across that way to me.
Yeah, I do think a bit you're right. I think that he is sort of playing them against each other, but I think he's trying to develop raw nerve between the two characters to where I think he's sort of in a weird about way. He wants Vic to sort of ride Dave to the point that he there's a fist fight between the two, and that maybe he'll knock some sense into Dave so whether he doesn't have to, because he's going blind and he's getting too old to where he can't. But here's the thing, he's so damn stubborn that had he maybe beat some sense into his son, all this could have been prevented with just an ass kick.
Well, the woman that works for the James Stewart ends up working for, she says that the mother was, I think she calls her a pretty little piece of fluff from back east, and had him married before he knew what happened, and she knew she could never control Alex, so she made sure to ruin Dave, so she could control him. And that's a really quick throwaway line that just tells you a lot about the character.
Yeah, it tells you a lot about Dave too. That he is just, and you can tell he's a spoiled rich kid. He's very snot-nosed punk, like you said, and I gotta tell you, I had to take moments in this movie, because when I go back and watch The Man from Laramie, I had to spend 20 minutes cleaning up drool from all the desert porn I was watching. And literally, it's like my wife's watching me as the white people. What are you doing? I'm like, this is good desert porn. And she goes, you're just too much. And I'm like, I am. I'm like, this is all Butch's fault. You should thank him. And I really love the cinematography in this and the way they shoot the desert. My favorite, and I want to get yours too, my favorite thing they shoot, though, is how they shoot the Half Moon Ranch. I love the view of that pond and just the open range of it. What's yours?
Probably the lead up to where the scene where Dave and James Stewart end up with the shot hands, when they're climbing up over that hill and there's all those rocks and whatnot. And one of the things I looked up said I believe this was the first one in CinemaScope or some kind of wide range, and you feel it. I mean, it's you're seeing the whole thing come across. And stop drilling, Joe.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir.
But yeah, it really takes. I won't go to say it makes the desert there a character or the forest or whatever, but you do get a sense of where you're at and what's going on.
Yeah, I think too with this movie, what's so great about it is though there is law in the town, it's very lawless because the sheriff is very much bought and paid for, and you know that. And you have this, there's a reason too that James Stewart's character doesn't kill Vic. And the reason he doesn't is because he's not there in official army business. He's there more of his own accord. He's there to find out what exactly who killed his brother. And he knows if he does kill Vic, that it would ruin his career as a captain. He wants to be James Stewart's character is what you call a lifer in the army, and he wants to forever stay there. It's what he tells the woman: "Hey, if you ever come east, you'll pass through Laramie. Ask for, ask for Captain." He says his name, and it's like I like that because it lets you know that this guy really respected his position and what he stood for.
And he might have been a soldier, but he wasn't a murderer.
Yep.
And Vic, a murderer, and an attempted murderer, and it's just desserts to, run out there and see what they do to you. I just kept thinking it'd be more appropriate if one of them shot him with the guns they got from him. I was just like, karma smacks you in the face, bud. Now, that leads. Let's back up just a little bit in the film when they're pushing the wagon over the hill. Why the hell does that wagon suddenly explode?
Because let's face facts, my friend. Though this has noir, this at heart is a western, and westerns have good action. And what good action movie doesn't have an explosion? I say.
But there's no reason for anybody that's not seen the film. There's a wagon. It's got looks like a bunch of Winchesters, repeating rifles, bullets, and Jimmy Stewart makes Vic help him push the wagon over, and here's the hill, and here's the wagon, and it goes, and it explodes, and it's like, I'm like, what the hell? This looks like a 70s detective show where every car suddenly turns into a Ford Pinto that's been slammed into by a tractor trailer. I mean, and even then, it's a small explosion. There should be plenty of rifles that still work, plenty of bullets that are still good. I thought maybe that's how Jimmy Stewart gets away. While the Apaches are busy killing Vic, he's like, hey, there's some rifles over here.
I'll say this: the writers need to find a way to destroy the rifles to prevent the Apaches from destroying the town. And this is their way out of it. That they write themselves way out of it. Though it makes no sense, the explosion is fun to watch.
At least throw in a line. Oh yeah, we got some dynamite in here too, just in case anybody ever found it. We could blow it up and deny it. There, I solved your problem in one line. I got another one for you. After Vic pushes Alec, and then James Stewart. Gosh, I can't think of his character's name. Layman, is that it? Anyway, James Stewart finds him, takes him back. They get the doctor. He comes out. The doctor says he's totally blind, but he's still unconscious. Well, then how the hell do you know he's totally blind? If he's unconscious, how can he tell you he can't see? It's the Old West. You barely know about germ theory. I don't mean to sound like I'm tearing this movie apart. I enjoyed this movie. It's a fun movie. There's just certain little things that go, huh?
You ready? Captain Will Lockhart is James Stewart's character.
Lockhart, that's what it was.
Mr. Lockhart.
Did you know this was a story that was serialized in the Saturday Evening Post a year before the movie came out?
I'm not shocked at that, and let me tell you why.
Tell me why.
If you've ever, now this isn't a Western, but if you've ever read the Shadow story Double Z, that's based on the real life murder of a judge.
Really?
Yes.
Really now?
Really. It's basically Zodiac before Zodiac. In its time. Which I think the Zodiac killer was a fan of the Shadow and read Double Z. That's just my theory. But with this, that doesn't shock me that that's the case, because often great stories are taken from real life events or from real life occurrences or occurrences that happen, and then they're fictionalized into stories.
Yeah, like what happened up in Louisville, Kentucky back on July 4th, 1985. I mean, you have to ask Patrick about that. That was some rough stuff, and it inspired a really good movie. God, Patrick must be like coming through me a little bit. I'm sensing his sense of humor coming in. James Stewart, I'm trying to correct myself. As we all know, or if you don't, we're telling you, James Stewart did not like to be called Jimmy, but that was his thing. He said this was his favorite Western. And this is the last one he did with Anthony Mann.
Yeah,
I think they did 2 more films after this, the last of which was SAC, Strategic Air Command, which if you've never seen is a pretty good film. I mean, it's a little 50s melodrama, and allegedly, according to, I think, IMDb, they had a falling out because the next film that Stewart and Mann were going to do, Stewart wanted Audie Murphy to be in it, and he was like, why do you want Audie Murphy into it? And they got into it over that. And man apparently allegedly told Stewart the only reason he wanted to play that role is so he could play his accordion, or not accordion. What's that thing? Is that an accordion?
Yeah, I think so.
And apparently, which I don't know, I find that a little funny. Apparently, that pissed Stewart off so much he never spoke to Anthony Mann again.
Is that the movie where James Stewart's character's arm gets broke?
I think so.
I think I know what you're talking about there. Oh my god. Oh my god. The reason directors and actors have falling outs is just the strangest shit.
I keep wondering, seriously, I wonder if if there was a falling out between John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, because they just suddenly just stopped making films together. Sure would be a shame if they made Escape from New York 3.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Have you ever seen Prince of Darkness?
I have.
Well, I seriously, honest to God, think that John Carpenter was who's the actor's name? Oh God, I'm gonna kick myself. Was going through you've seen, who's the actor from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch? Oh my God.
Tom Atkins?
Yeah, I think he was severely missing Tom Atkins when he cast the
I tell you the reason I first rented from a VHS store, Prince of Darkness. Of course, I recognize John Carpenter. And I'm like, hey, it's the dude from Simon and Simon. I think his real name is Jameson Parker. Don't quote me on that. And I was like, he's our action hero? And I'm like, okay, I got to see this. And he's sort of, I mean, he's not a super action hero. I mean, he's kind of a regular, and he's more of a scientist. But, the thing is with Carpenter, he got really good performances out of people in roles you might not have thought they would be good at. I know you're a wrestling fan.
Yes.
They Live. Roddy Piper, maybe it's not Oscar worthy, but Roddy Piper gives such a damn good performance in that film. He is so believable.
I forget the WrestleMania it happened, but the WrestleMania where Alice Cooper's Jake the Snake Roberts manager, that's where John Carpenter was in the crowd. That's how he met Alice Cooper and pitched him, to appear in for the movie we just talked about. Yeah.
And he's such a good home. And I know this sounds weird, but he plays such a good homeless guy because he already looks like one. God bless him. He's so thin and pale. It's like, Alice, do you ever go out in the sun? What's that make him up a little bit? And what's interesting, which you may or may not know, when the scientist with the glasses and kind of a big nose, who was on another TV show that's escaping me at the moment. Of course, he played a nerd because he looked like a nerd. He's got headphones on, and they stab him with a bike, which is a gag that Alice used to use in his concerts. When his headphones fall off, you can hear the song Prince of Darkness by Alice Cooper as he's stabbed by Alice Cooper in the film Prince of Darkness. So there's you a nice little...
That's a way to plug your good music.
Off of the album Raise Your Fist and Yell, which may or may not have been my first Alice Cooper album, and may or may not, is my favorite Alice Cooper album, or at the very least, it's in the top 3.
That's the thing too. Like these past 2 days, lost 2 wrestlers, lost Terry Funk and Wyndham Rotunda, who was only younger than my sister-in-law. He was only 36 or 37 when he passed away.
Did he wrestle under that name? Because I'm not a wrestling fan, but
no, he wrestled under the name Bray Wyatt. But here's the thing: Wyndham Rotunda, his father was Mike Rotunda, who was IRS, R&R Shyster, and his uncle is Barry Windham, legendary Four Horsemen member. So Wyndham Rotunda.
I hope you see the kind of glazed over look because I'm going, huh?
Yeah. If you ever want a wrestling lesson, I'm your guy. And I'll talk to you until your head explodes or spins or you strangle me to death, whichever happens first.
I used to always say I know 3 wrestlers. I'm now up to 5. Andre the Giant. He's dead. But everybody, growing up when I did, everybody knew Andre the Giant.
Right.
Number 2, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
His career's dead. Number 3, I mentioned him, Roddy Piper, and I only knew him from Prince of Darkness and another movie, hilariously bad movie called Hell Comes to Frogtown, which if you've never seen is, and you want to laugh. Of course, now everybody knows The Rock.
Yeah.
And at times I wished I didn't, but apparently he's a really good person, so I'm not going to talk bad about him. And then number 5, I always have to think of his name. It takes me a minute. And it's late at night, so it's not. He's the one who went, woo, all the time.
Ric Flair.
We were at Fanboy, which is a local convention. They'll have wrestlers, they'll have actors, writers, And my wife wanted to go see Lou Diamond Phillips. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it was really hot, and we'd had a picture taken with him, and I told her to stay upstairs. I would go downstairs and get the photo. Well, I'm walking around, and all these Ric Flair fans are woo, woo. I mean, it got annoying after a little bit. And then this one guy does it right in my ear, and let's see if I can clean this up and just tell him I told him bad things would happen to him if he did that again. I get it. At the beginning of any of our videos, I do this because I'm a Star Trek fan.
Right.
But I don't do it in your ear. I don't yell at you in your ear, I don't get right here in the camera, Of course, that's just bad. But yeah, there's the 5 wrestlers I know.
So if I ever meet you in person, Butch, should I just introduce myself as Shane?
In the words of a great film, triple dog dare you say that to my wife. Make sure your life insurance is paid up and warn your wife what's about to happen. And we all quiet so it won't be considered suicide, because that's what's going to happen to you.
She'll just be like, oh, okay, we're all good.
She'll be like, how much am I getting? Oh, did you say that, honey?
That's the title, man. So here's the thing too. Like, there's Ric Flair is a part of the member of the 4 Horsemen. The original members were Ric Flair, Ole Anderson, Arn Anderson. No, they're not really related. Arn Anderson's real name is Marty Lundy, J.J. Dillon, and Tully Blanchard. Now, J.J. Dillon was their manager. My favorite incarnation of the 4 Horsemen is Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, and Sid Vicious. That's my favorite incarnation of the Horsemen. At one point, it got so ridiculous. They had Vader in there. They had Sting in there. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols wrestled?
No. Another Sid Vicious.
Oh, I got a question for you. Who was the guy that dressed like the Crow?
That was Sting.
Oh.
Well, he didn't dress like the Crow until 1996, 97. And I'll tell you whose idea that was. Scott Hall, who once wrestled under the name Razor Ramon in WWF. He said, Sting, have you ever seen the Crow? And this was basically to counteract the whole NWO angle. That's how they did that.
I have to admit, I know one more wrestler.
Yes.
I don't know his real name. Well, I can't think of his real name. Kane.
Oh, Glenn Jacobs.
He is the mayor of Knoxville, which is the biggest town. I think it's about 10 miles over. He's the mayor. We have a mayor of Knox County. We have a mayor of Knox City, and I can't remember which one he is because I don't live over there. But I do remember when he won the election, somebody going, our mayor can body slam your mayor. I'm like, well, I hope so.
Glenn Jacobs is his real name.
Glenn Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah. He played Kane. He actually played Isaac Yankem, DDS, and he played the fake Diesel in WWF. Fun news.
So let's tie this all back to Jimmy Stewart now.
Yes. Go back.
Because I can talk about James Stewart. I don't necessarily talk too much about wrestling. We're pretty much at my limit, to be perfectly honest.
What's your is this your favorite James Stewart Western?
No.
What is?
I don't know. This is all kidding aside. Hold on. Oh, it's been super hot here today. I think it was the high was like 96, 97. And the sun finally went down. It's cooling down a little bit. But my throat has been super parched today. Is this my favorite James Stewart Western? Unless I have a list to look through, I might default to this just because I've always liked this one. With us doing the Western series, I've become a little more critical of films, and I'll be like, why did the wagon catch on fire? Why did the wagon explode? So, truthfully, rewatching it this time, it's kind of knocked it down a little bit. But there's, if you're gonna put a gun to my head and make me answer right now, yeah, I'll say this. But if you gave me time to really think about it and look it up, I may pick something else. But this is one of the better ones. I think probably the ones with Anthony Mann are probably. I think they're probably all in the top 10.
Yeah, Anthony Mann knew how to direct a Western, which is a lot of fun. I mean, this is his Westerns did show blood, and it was pre-60s. I mean, a bit ahead of their time. My favorite, obviously, James Stewart is Bend of the River. I've mentioned that. Right behind that would be Winchester 73. Good movie, which is more about vengeance than revenge. James Stewart, really, really, really great actor and really great Western actor too. I know many people might not think of him in Westerns because they know him for the Hitchcock movie Vertigo, and they should, and Rear Window, which everybody has a James Stewart impersonation. I'll give you I think I saw my neighbor murder his wife. And no, that's not in the movie, but I make it up anyway.
I would argue more people know him from It's a Wonderful Life. For God's sakes, Mary, they built this thing in Bedford Falls. There's mine. It's not very good. I've tried. As I've gotten older, you start seeing patterns sometimes that don't exist as life goes on. And you compare certain actors to certain actors, which we've done.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, nobody really compares to James Stewart. Well, as I've gotten older, I've come to believe Tom Hanks is the modern James Stewart. I feel like both of these actors, Tom Hanks and James Stewart, could play just about anybody. They excel at a quote everyman role that seemingly anybody could do. But both of them are just really good at playing. I don't say average guys, but average guys.
Overall, what do you give this movie? 1 out of 10.
I would have said 8, but now I'm going to drop it down to 7 after seeing things, after watching it a few times. Like, okay, but some really great performances, some really great scenes, some good actors that you may not know, especially Alec Wagaman. I can't think of his real name, the actor's name, but really like him. It's a good film. It's a good, solid film. I don't want to make it sound like it's bad. It's got a few things that annoy me, but I've seen much, 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 much worse films. What about you?
I've seen much, much worse films too, like Halloween Ends. Anyway, this movie gets a 7. This movie does get a 7 out of 10, and I do think that look, the exploding wagon is poorly written out of this movie. I'll give it that. I think if honestly, if James Stewart's character just does have dynamite on him and just blows up the wagon, we're good. But no, that doesn't happen. Other than that, the movie's just a good watch. I mean, the scenery is nice. The acting is really good. James Stewart is your leading man in this, and he performs really, really well, really greatly. So 7 out of 10.
It tells a good story. Like we both said, it's a detective Western, and there aren't many detective Westerns.
No, they're not. They're not. This was very much a noir western in every way. I mean, here's somebody. He's not He says he's out for revenge. He's more out for the truth than anything else.
Though we are missing a femme fatale. I won't call the owner of the Mercantile. She's not really a femme fatale. We kind of need one of those.
I do think we needed a woman villain in this. We needed something like, hand to God, where is Claudia Carnell when you need her? But other than, you know, but really, because the woman in this movie, she's more just there for me than anything else.
Scenery.
She's just in the movie for scenery, and it's like, yeah, she's a very beautiful girl, but I'm thinking, if she's more of a heel in this movie, it'd have made it like, if she knows what Vic's doing, that'd have made it
behind it.
Right. If she were behind it, that'd have made things real interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And giving her more to do than other.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Lehman.
Or whatever his name was.
Oh, Mr. Lockhart. Oh,
Mr.
Lockhart.
Will you take me away from all this?
My name's Will Lockhart, ma'am. I'm not Calgon.
You know, I have two movies for next week, Butch, and I'm going to help. Yes, and I'm going to help you. You're going to help me choose.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we could either do Unforgiven, or we could do the Stalking Moon.
The Stalking Moon. I don't know anything about that film.
It has Gregory Peck in it, and it has Eva Marie Saint.
Gregory Batman Peck?
Yes.
Always my choice for Batman Peck. We're going to go with that one.
Okay, so next Friday at 9:45, God damn it, it's going to be the Stalking Moon.
What is it?
The Stalking Moon.
Stalking like you're stalking somebody, or stalking like a woman wears?
Stalking like you're stalking somebody.
Okay. Hold on.
This is more of a horror western, in a sense.
Let's see. Gregory Peck, Eva Marie Saint. Looks like it came out in '68.
Yes.
Alrighty. Okay. Yes. That's what we're going to do.
The Stalking Moon for next week. This movie is, I'll say this, very, very suspenseful for what it is. And they do a good job. I think you'll like this one.
I think I will also.
If you don't, I'll hear about it.
Cool. What kind of crap were you on to suggest this?
You know what I was on? I was on Baja Blast Zero, my friend. That's what I've been drinking. All right. But enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Always a pleasure. You have a good one, too.
See you, bud. Bye.